In this video, we're going to discuss the topic of using Para EQ versus Global EQ on the Headrush Pedalboard. Hey guys, I'm Dr. McFarland and welcome back to the channel. I see a lot of questions when I'm posting videos about different tones or sharing rigs in the cloud. And people ask, hey, are you using global EQ to get those sounds? So let's go ahead and discuss a few reasons why you wouldn't want to use global EQ and some reasons why you would, and how using a Para EQ might be a better fit for your situation. So if I go ahead and go to global EQ here, global settings, page 2 is your global EQs. You can see we have one for the XLR and we also have one for the amp line out. And if I had this on, you can see I'm not really adjusting anything drastic. We do have the shelf options or the cut options for your low band and your high band. And if I had this on and started making all kinds of tweaks, then what I'm hearing out of my studio monitors or my FR speaker is going to be a little bit different from what you're going to be hearing if you were to download my rig and sync it up with your Headrush Pedalboard. Because you're not going to have those same global settings as I am. So that way I'm hearing it differently and I'm basing my decisions on how to adjust that rig on the global EQ, which you don't have the same settings on yours. So it really wouldn't make sense to download a rig, sync it up with your Headrush Pedalboard, and then expect the exact same sound when, one, I do have a different guitar than you. You know, I may have different pickups, maybe output levels. So there's just a lot of different factors that go into how a rig sounds from one user to the next. But what can be transferable from one user to the next is a Para EQ that's used in the actual rig itself. So let's go ahead and look at that option and see why you would want to use a Para EQ versus a global EQ. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in an amp. Here lately, I've been using the Princeton Reverb for a lot of my clean stuff, and I think it sounds great. So let's put it on the Ribbon 121. Let's bring it on axis. And let's change the color so you guys can see the levels a little bit better. Now, the first thing that you need to do before you apply any other signal processing or other overdrives is you want to make sure that the core sound of your amp and cab is what you want. So in this case, if I'm hearing too much bass or low end, I can just simply go in and take that down. Let's take it down to 30. All right, now the bass at 100%, maybe you'd want to do that, maybe not. As long as it doesn't sound too woofy and woolly down there, then it's fine. But in most band contexts, it's better that the guitar doesn't have as much bass as you think it should. So that way the kick drum, the bass guitar can live in that low end area and you're not stepping on the frequency ranges of other instruments in the group. So that's why I prefer to kind of keep my low end down a little bit. All right, I am going to go ahead and save this Para Global. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in a Para EQ, which is a little bit different than a graphic EQ, because graphic is only one frequency range per slider, and all you can do is just bring that up or down. With the Para EQ, you actually have the ability to sweep across the full frequency spectrum on any given band. You can really pinpoint a certain frequency range that you want to either adjust up or down. All right, so I have a preset in here called Smooth Top. And let's change that color to red so you can see it really well. So I want you to listen with it off and then on. And then try and pinpoint what the difference is before I even show you what settings I used, okay? So listen to the off setting. And All right, so let's go ahead and show you the settings. And I have a -4 dB cut on the low end. And we can adjust that up or down depending on if it's like a full gain amp or maybe just a clean amp. You can kind of tweak it a little bit. But making sure we're controlling the lower frequency information is very important. So let's see what happens if we put it back on 0. Okay, it does sound nice and full, but it may sound a little too full. So let's just try and go down to, around 100 hertz and then bring that part down. So that way we're not attenuating anything around the 200 range, 2 to 250, which gives your guitar a lot of beef in that low end. And we can adjust the Q as well, which makes it a gradual curve versus a sharp curve. And if you have questions about that, I have a whole video on para, graphic, and global EQ. You can go check that out in the cards right here. All right, so let's say we keep that there. And then on gain 2, I'm not really doing a whole lot. Gain 3, I'm actually boosting around 2K, which is that nasal upper mid-range area where that helps the guitar kind of stick out a little bit. All right, and then gain 4, I'm actually cutting 3 dB around 4K. Now this is the area of the guitar that can sound fizzy. You see a lot of Helix guys using their EQs to cut this section out. Or you may see some audio engineers in some big time studios giving recording tutorials on how to mix vocals and guitars and different drums and all that. And they're like, okay, you need to go to 4K, cut that. So that way you're taking out a lot of that fizz and you're leaving room for the vocal to sit in the mix. So that's basically what I'm doing right now. And you can see that the type is at peak. If I had it at a shelf, it would gradually come up and then it would be straight across. But by having it be peak, I can either peak that frequency or I can cut that frequency. Okay. So if I peaked it, let's see what happens here. So let's bring this up a lot. All right, so that 4K area is really biting and super bright. So let's bring it down. All right, and if you feel like it's getting a little too dull, we can narrow up the Q a little bit. So you can make it wider or narrower depending on how large the number of Q you have. So the bigger the number, the narrower the Q. The lower the number, the wider the Q. So let's keep it around 3 right there. All right, and let's say we like this setting. And I'm going to hit save new preset. I'm just going to say guitar EQ. So now we have those settings saved. I can go back. And now when I share this rig with any other user and they sync it up to their Headrush Pedalboard, they're going to get roughly the same sound as what I had versus having those same settings in the global EQ and then not really being able to transfer that same sound from user to user. So let's turn off the para EQ and go to global settings. Let's kind of do the same thing. So let's go down to 100 hertz. We're going to shelve it down just a little bit. Maybe tighten up the Q. And so now with this global EQ is on. There's with it off. So even just adjusting the bass response, I can hear a little difference in the bass itself. Let's go to the high mids and let's boost that just a little bit. All right, and let's tighten the Q on that. All right, now let's go to our highs, put it in cut mode, and we are going to cut a little bit of 4K here. Tighten the Q. Maybe not. All right, so the cut setting is not really sounding the same as the peak on the Perry EQ to me. And since I can't see an actual graph of what the EQ is doing, I kind of just have to use my ears. So let's not have the cut be so drastic. Let's just keep it around 2 dB. All right, does that sound better? Does it sound worse? It's kind of subjective at that point, but it does kind of keep the low end under control, and we can kind of adjust our top end to maybe fit the room that we're in. But if you're going to share a rig with somebody else based off of your global EQ settings, then I highly suggest kind of straying away from that and just turning your global EQ off. And maybe all you do for your global EQ is maybe you show up to a gig and you feel like the low end is just a little too crazy in the room. You can go in and just lower that a little bit, turn it on, and now you got your low shelf and you're keeping everything else intact. All right, so let's listen one more time. Here's our rig. Now, I am going to say that the Perry EQ is maybe less effective for your clean tone. I mean, it does help to shape the sound overall, but I think it's even better for your really distorted, overdriven tones, because that can have a lot of frequency information in those upper mids that you may not want to have in there. So go ahead and experiment with your Perry EQs on your heavier amps and just see how it sounds to you. And go ahead and leave a comment down below and let me know how you use the Perry EQ versus global EQ. If you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And go ahead and subscribe and click that bell icon so you'll be notified every time I release new content. And if you want to find ways to support the channel, then click the Amazon affiliate links down below. And whatever you buy through those links, I get a little bit of kickback from that. And it just goes to help support me and my work here on YouTube. And if you want to be a more confident musician, definitely check out the members area on my website where you learn about music theory, gear, and recording. And there's plenty of payment options for anyone's budget. So check that out. And in the meantime, I'm Dr. McFarland. I will see you in the next video. Keep rocking.